Now only 2 weeks remain in the regular season of the Overwatch League for teams to fight for their final position in the overall standings, but some look to automatically qualify for the playoffs through the top 6, whilst others are still battling for their chance to compete in the play-in tournament by making the top 12. Before I start, I just want to quickly again thank everyone for the support in growing this channel, as I just passed 3,000 subscribers last night. This is totally unexpected, but a fantastic milestone for me to reach, and I can only thank all of you for it. But as said, let's get straight into seeing how the current playoff picture stands. At the end of Stage 4, Week 3, the current overall standings look like this. The top 3 in Vancouver, New York and San Francisco remain our only confirmed teams inside the top 6, and we know that with the Titans and Excelsior logging up the Pacific and Atlantic divisions respectively, they're guaranteed to be our top 2 seeds. The only development after last week is that following New York's ugly defeat to the Charge, Vancouver are now guaranteed to be the number 1 seed due to their superior and now unreachable record. At the opposite end of the spectrum, there have been some further developments, with the Outlaws now joining the Defiant, Justice and Mayhem, now being officially eliminated from the playoff race, with it now mathematically impossible for them to make the top 12, after losses this week to London and Washington. But now let's look at the more interesting aspects of the playoff picture, starting with a tight battle for a top 6 position. Again, I'll be using a graphic produced by Captain Planet to illustrate the percentage chance of where each team ends up at the end of the season. With only 3 spots left, the competition here is fierce, with 8 teams still fighting for an automatic playoff berth. These teams looking to make the top 6 are the LA Gladiators, London Spitfire, Hangzhou Spark, Seoul Dynasty, Guangzhou Charge, Shanghai Dragons, Atlanta Reign, and lastly, somehow, still the Philadelphia Fusion. Just like last week, I'm going to put aside the outsiders, who despite in theory still being within a chance of making the top 6, I just don't see it happening at all, and these teams are the Charge and Fusion. Guangzhou, despite playing some of the best Overwatch for this stage, and being one of the most informed teams in the moment, I think they've left it too little too late to sneak inside the top 6. They had an incredibly good week 3, coming back to defeat the Dynasty in a reverse sweep, before demolishing New York convincingly 4-0. Their defeat to London in week 2 means that even when they presumably beat Dallas this week, in their last remaining fixture, they will finish with a record of 15 and 13, with a map differential at best of +4. I mean, the only way they can make the top 6 is if the Spark lose all 3 of their remaining matches, which is unlikely, whilst teams around them like Seoul, Atlanta and Shanghai also lose their games they have left to play as well, so I think they should be just looking to confirm their top 12 spot and look to build momentum towards the play-in tournament. Philly, meanwhile, have an even more daunting task if they want to miraculously squeeze into the top 6, with Captain Planet's model seeing them make it only 16 times out of 100,000 different possibilities. If Fusion fans really want to know, your team would have to win out with 4-0 scorelines, whilst both Seoul and Hangzhou lose out. At the same time, they need the Dragons to go 2-1, but lose massively and win only closely, so they would creep in on map differential. So if you want my advice, I wouldn't recommend placing any bets on automatic qualification, especially given how poorly they've been playing at the moment, as demonstrated in their sloppy loss to Vancouver last week. Late last week though, I think that both the Gladiators and Spitfire remain in the driving seats for the last 2 with the 3 final positions in the top 6. LA looked a little shaky in their 3-2 win over Dallas, but with it, they now have got to 16 wins and have such a strong map differential at +18 that I could very easily see them still inside the top 6, even if they were to lose their last 2 matches. With them going against the Spark and Valiant, I expect them to pick up at least 1 victory, if not 2, and officially confirm their playoff spot. With a win over the Spark being crucial, as a loss there could perhaps make things a little nervy in regards to the chasing pack. London meanwhile also have 16 wins, but only 1 more series to play. Their map differential is a little worse, so perhaps they might begin to worry if they lose convincingly, and others around them pick up victories. But the chasing pack would likely need to win out, and with the Spitfires match being against Atlanta, they could end up killing 2 birds with 1 stone, confirming their playoff spot whilst preventing the Reign from sneaking in themselves, and they should have confidence to do this after a promising past week, with a narrow loss to Vancouver and good win over Houston. Behind these 2, the Spark have the next best chance for qualification, and I reckon that because of their comparatively weak map differential, they'll need to pick up 2 wins out of their remaining 3 matches to make it inside the top 6, with 1 coming against the Fuel. It'll be their matches against the Gladiators and Dragons that will prove crucial, as unless the chasers behind them stumble, 16 wins and a poor map differential might not be enough, but with their win last week against Chengdu, they look much improved and finally have some momentum behind them that could build over these last 2 weeks. This leaves Seoul, Shanghai and Atlanta as the most realistic contenders of the chasing pack to sneak inside the top 6, and to be perfectly honest, the equation for all of them is simple, and then they need to win out. And in the case of Shanghai especially, they need to win out with strong wins to help them make up for a significantly worse map differential compared to the Dynasty, Reign and also the teams above them. Seoul and Shanghai have been a little inconsistent of late, but due to playing a lot of teams around them, they still have a chance to put themselves in the best chance of making the top 6 with their match against one another tonight, another guaranteed to be crucial. Atlanta, meanwhile, has yet to be tested this stage, but looked brilliant in their opening 2 weeks of Stage 4. So this week will be a true test of their strength as they face London and Washington in 2 must-win matches. But if they do win, they put themselves in a much better chance of making the top 6, with easier fixtures in Week 5. Moving away from the top 6, let's now see how the top 12 is shaping out, as teams look to book their place in the play-in tournament for a last shot of making the playoffs. Following their wins last week and losses from others, both Hangzhou and Seoul have now joined the teams that currently sit above them in guaranteeing themselves a top 12 position, with their records and map differentials unattainable by those outside looking in. Flipping the perspective, it looks almost certain now that whilst they still could creep in, it's unlikely that Dallas, Boston, or Paris will be able to make the top 12, as their records and map differentials are very far behind the others. And whilst all 3 have shown glimpses of promise, it wouldn't surprise me to see them lose all their remaining matches, with some really tough fixtures coming up for all of these sides in the next couple of weeks, with some of them scheduled against teams fighting tooth and nail for a top 6 position. Consequently, I think that the real battle for spots within the top 12 really comes down to Guangzhou, Shanghai, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chengdu, and the LA Valiant. Of course, the higher teams only really come at a risk if the Hunters and Valiant win out of their remaining fixtures, or at least lose no more than 1 match. With Chengdu playing against the Shock and Outlaws, this is totally feasible given the unpredictability in their performances, but at the same time, as we saw in their fluff against Spark, they could just as easily lose both of their remaining matches as well. The main issue facing the Hunters is that because their map differential is the worst of those here, should they lose once or twice, the Valiant could very easily climb ahead of them with an easy upcoming match against Boston in Week 4. Should they hold on though, I think the odds still look against the LA side, as despite a win this upcoming week against the Uprising, their homestand weekend looks incredibly tough as they have to play both the Gladiators and Shock, who could end up knocking them out of contention. The only reason the other sides I've mentioned might get involved in this scrap between Chengdu and the Valiant is if they lose all their remaining matches, with Atlanta and Shanghai the most at risk given the tough games in hand they both have to play, but with Philly's terrible map differential, they could have some issues as well. However, I think the Charge are probably the safest of all these teams I've mentioned. If I had to put money on it right now, I'd say the Valiant are going to be the ones missing out, but by this time next week, we should hopefully have a better idea, with Valiant's homestand fixtures potentially proving crucial in determining whether they make it or not. So with this being the last week before the shorter homestand weekend, which are the crucial matches with the biggest impact on the playoff picture to look forward to this week? For day 1, it has to be the Seoul vs Shanghai match, with it likely being the loser is knocked out of the running for a top 6 spot. But keep an eye on the Spark series against Dallas as well, as an upset here could shake things up a bit. I'd argue all of the games on Friday are actually incredibly important and ones you must watch, as they each hold huge playoff implications at both the battles for the top 6 and top 12. Again, both Saturday and Sunday are hugely important for a lot of the teams. If I had to pick 2 matches to watch out of all of them, it would be the Seoul vs Philly match, which will be crucial if the Dynasty beat Shanghai at the beginning of the week, whilst the London vs Atlanta series also holds major playoff implications, as well as promising to be a very entertaining contest to watch. And with that, we reach the end of this week's edition of my Overwatch League playoff race rundown, and I'd like to thank you for watching. There may be a video tomorrow, but I'm not entirely sure yet. However, if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.